Flo Anthony, the original Gossip Girl. How are you?
I'm fine, Jason. How are you doing today?
I am doing great because I'm with you right now.
Well, thank you.
So you were on Ricky Lake, the Joan Rivers Show, and the Maury Povich Show, just to name a few.
Yes.
Did you ever think celebrity news would reach the level it's reached?
Yeah, celebrity news has always been hot. When I was a little kid, they used to call me the Black Rona Barrett. Not be in it. I really don't think I was a gossip columnist. I think I just ran my mouth all the time. And then when I got to be in high school, I was the reporter, the youth reporter for the youth page for the Ann Arbor News. And so then I began a career in newspapers. But celebrity gossip has always been where it's at. It got bigger with, of course, Rona Barrett. When I was a kid, she was just my idol. She had her own magazine, Rona Barrett's Hollywood, and then she was on television. In fact, she was the first one on television doing those interviews. She interviewed Cher. They were both in the bed in lingerie and everything. And Barbara Walters stole that concept from Rona Barrett.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, she did.
The celebrity interview?
Yes, Rona Barrett was doing them, and Barbara Walters' father, he owned, I believe he owned a nightclub, and then maybe was also a talent agent. And that's how she really got her start in the business, and they took that right from Rona Barrett and gave it to Barbara Walters. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a tidbit of history.
Yes.
I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have thought, I didn't know.
Yep.
So you were right on the cusp or at the genesis of the celebrity news stations, the celebrity news show. What was that time like?
Well, the tabloid TV really kind of got big because of me. Like Hard Copy, they would come down to the New York Post and interview me about Michael Jackson or Whitney Houston. And that's really how the tabloid TV got so large. It was an exciting time. You know, I didn't get in this business to be a gossip columnist. I wanted to be a sports reporter. And but I was over in the that's a story and a half. But I got the job. I had a column called Keep Punching in the Black American newspaper. And it really just didn't cover boxing, it covered all sports. And so one day I received a call from Dean Miminger Sr., you know, his son is now, you know, on New York One, from the basketball player Dean Miminger. And he said, you know, the New York Post, they're looking for someone in the agate, to be the agate clerk. The agate clerk is who does all the boxes, you know, the basketball boxes, the sports racing stuff, the hockey boxes. That's what the agate clerk is. And they want to hire a sister. So we're recommending you for the job. And he said, so call a guy by the name of Mike George. So Mike George, I called him up. He worked in the sports department. And he said, well, I don't know really about it too much. He was weird. He's a good friend of mine, though, but then he was very strange. So I said, well, I'll call Dick Young. Well, how can you call Dick Young? He's never here. I said, I'll call him at home. He said, well, how do you know Dick Young? I said, well, I've been doing publicity for boxers, you know, for the last few years, and I know him well. So then I called Dick Young, and he said that Greg Gallo, who's Bill Gallo's son, is who does the hiring. He said, but I don't think you want that job. That's for a kid. I said, look, I really need the job. I don't care who it's for. So then I called up Bill Gallo, you know, who was the cartoonist, a very famous, legendary sports cartoonist. And he said, give him 15 minutes and he would call his son and then call him back. So I did. He said, okay, go ahead and call him. So he set up the interview with Jerry Lisker, who was the executive editor of the sports department. And all Jerry Lisker saw in my whole resume, it said I worked for Butch Lewis and Michael Spinks. So he said Butch Lewis was his best friend. I said, oh, Lord. So then I left there. I said, Butch, you know, I just had an interview with Jerry Lisker. He said he already called me. He's going to lay the gig on you. And the rest was history. But then I didn't make it as the agate clerk. You had to, every night, first of all, I had to be there forever waiting for the Lakers scores to come in and the daggone Vancouver Canucks hockey scores. So they even got me a t-shirt. I had one that said Flo Canucks and another one they got me that said Floesevelt because I had to do everything with the Roosevelt racetrack. But I was slow at it. And they called me in one day and they said, we're moving you to the entertainment department. We see that's what your degree is in. And I said, I can't go to the entertainment department. I failed the whole black community if I can't make it. They said, Flo, it's a day job because the agate clerk, you work from 7 o'clock to 2 in the morning. And it's a day job, it's more pay. You know, it's a better job. I was still very highly upset. So I went kicking and screaming. And all the guys that I worked with that had my agate clerk job before me, because one of them, Frankie Isola, to this day is saying, you still think I stole your job? Because he came home from college, and that was one reason they were moving me, because he was going to get that job back. But they're all big stars now. You know, he's a big star. Michael Kay is a big star. Barry Warner, he's like the head of Fox Sports in LA. They're big, big stars now. And I really did start out with that whole crew. So I'm not a big star like them in sports, but that's who I started out with. And still pretty good friends with them.
Well, you have the scoop on everything. Is it hard to get that much sought after information?
You know, it just, you know, I kind of just fell into it because, as I said, they sent me over to the entertainment department. And the first thing, I was really the editorial assistant over there. And that's like all the schlock jobs. I did the movie clock, the theater guide, the Atlantic City guide, the movie, it was a lot of schlock job stuff. And then I also did the TV grid, which they gave me $50 extra a week for. You know, when you have the TV shows in the back of the paper, someone has to actually line all that up, and that was me. And they gave me $50 extra a week to do that. But stuff just fell in me because what happened? Oh, when I was over in the sports department, Otis Wilson of the Chicago Bears was a very good friend of mine. And he called me one night and he said, you know, Jim McMahon, they just fined him $5,000 for having that Adidas logo on his headband. And so I told him at the Post. So immediately they came running over from page 6 and said, give us this story again. And so they put the picture of it with that because they couldn't get over I got that kind of inside information. So it all came very natural to me. When Mike Tyson, you know, married Robin Givens even, I just was in line to go see School Days at the premiere. And somebody said, you know, Flo, Mike Tyson married Robin Givens earlier this morning in Chicago. And so right away, I had no say. I called the Post and told them. So I just broke that story. And so it all came pretty natural to me.
So most of the information was volunteer.
Yeah, oh, it still is. It still is volunteer. Because years ago, you know, poor Isaac Hayes has left us now, but you know, he did that movie, what's the pimp movie?
Shaft.
No, with Anthony Anderson and Terrence Howard.
Hustle and Flow.
Hustle and Flow. And you know, I love Anthony Anderson, but remember he got in some kind of trouble down there with in the strip house and all. And so I just, you know, I asked Isaac Hayes, I said, well, what happened? And so then he told me, and my friends in general, they were just amazed that a celebrity like Isaac Hayes would just tell me what happened, because, you know, he owned the bar in the movie. So, so it all has always just kind of come naturally. You know, people have always liked me. I only really had problems with 2 celebrities, and ever.
That was my next question. So were they receptive, the celebrities that?
Yeah, everybody was. I had, you know, I always, you know, had a lot of problems with Whitney Houston. In fact, she sued me. Oh. In fact, but in the end, and that was kind of funny too, because when we went to do the deposition at the Post, I can talk about it now because she's dead. Her dad, who was the source, is dead. Everybody dead. So. Well, it's true, they're all dead. And so they deposed me, and all of a sudden, when my mother flew in from Michigan, my mother just came breaking in there. Whitney Houston, with all her money, better leave my daughter alone. So I said, oh, Lord. So at any rate, everybody said, well, she could stay Slade. The attorney said everybody has a mother. But what was strange about that, they asked me because it was about Whitney Houston and diet pills, not even hard drugs or anything, diet pills. It was so Joan Rivers said, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. What woman is not taking diet pills? So at any rate, so when they deposed me, I said that the call did come in, you know, about cocaine, but then it, you know, was then told diet pills. So they asked me you know, if anybody had ever heard she used drugs. And so I looked at my attorney, I said, can I see you outside? And he came back in and he said, I've advised Flo that since she's under oath, she can answer truthfully. Do you know they went to court so that no one could ask Whitney Houston that question after I answered truthfully. So it was a lot going on. So in the end, though, the last time I saw her alive, we did hug. I have to say that at the Regal Hotel. And then always I go back and forth with Spike. I love him more than life itself. My friends used to say, he tells you to get a cab to help him in the middle of the night to Brooklyn, you do it. But he's just always something going on. Just calling down to the post, yelling at me about something. But he's somebody, I love him to death despite all that. But other than that, I've never really had any problems with anyone because I try to do everything on a positive and up note. No.
Are there any celebrities that are like a no-fly zone where they're like, don't talk about them?
Only time that's ever happened to me, and I wasn't the one talking about her, when I was on the gossip show on E, Jennifer Love Hewitt did call the gossip show and ask that nobody gossip about her. That's the only person I've ever known to do that. And I've always had deals with Vivica Fox and Lisa Ray McCoy that I call them and not a publicist if I know something about them. Or heard something. So that still kind of stands.
So for a young girl out there now that wants to be the next Flo Anthony, how is she made?
You know, it's changed so much now, Jason. You know, any renegade with a computer can be a gossip columnist. You know, you got all these bloggers, and now the things that these bloggers are getting away with, talk about Whitney taking me to court. I would have lived in the courtroom if I would have written anything like that. You couldn't do that. You really couldn't do that. And so I don't know what kind of advice to give because journalism went out the window. You really don't have to be a journalist. You almost don't have to go to school. You can just get a computer and, a site and go butt wild. So it's hard to say because to me now, there are very few legitimate gossip columnists. I came along in that era of, right after, the Cindy Adams, who's still working avidly. She's just my idol, my mentor, everything, and the Liz Smith era, and after all of those people, Page Six with the Richard Johnsons and stuff, we came along after that, and Neil Travis and them, and then now you've got some people out there. Page Six still exists. You've got people out there, but it's just not the same. It really isn't. So I don't know what to tell them. I used to advise young writers to start like I started in the black papers and build up a portfolio and everything, but nobody wants to do that now. Why should they? They could just get a blog and go for it, Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the black papers, you were the first black gossip columnist for the New York Post.
At the New York Post, I was first in a lot of things. I was the first female in the sports department, in my famous job of the Aggie clerk. And then I was the first black person in the entertainment department. And I was the first black person, period, at Page Six. And the first black person in America, the United States of America, in the general media to write a gossip column once I got to Page Six.
How'd that situation come about?
At Page Six, I kept breaking stories. After it was Mike, Mary, and Robin, I broke so many stories about them. It was just crazy. It went from marriage, divorce, to this, to that. Same thing with Whitney and Bobby, because I found out they were dating, and I called his publicist, and she said, "No, you can't write that." And 10 minutes later, she called me back and said, "Bobby said you could go ahead and write that." I guess he wanted everybody to know. And when Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman adopted their first child, Connor, I broke that story. One of my, when Tatum O'Neal and John McEnroe broke up, I broke that story. One of my favorite stories that I broke was when Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger got married, and by the end of the day, they figured out the source, and they were uninvited to the wedding. And then I was so worried. When I went to bed that night, I said, oh my God, wonder if this is all wrong. They're not getting married. I just went to bed, and then somebody woke me up. They said, you hit a home run. They got married tonight. So yeah, that's that's kind of how it all came about with breaking stories. I'm somebody that actually worked their way through life and worked hard. I worked hard. So.
What was the biggest story you ever broke?
Oh boy, there were so many of them. They were all big. I mean, Basinger and Alec Baldwin getting married, Basinger and Alec Baldwin breaking up. Right, I didn't break it, but I would think Arthur Ashe's death. They called me to come to the hospital. I was one of the few journalists that they called to come to the hospital. And then, I went back to the paper. It was a Sunday afternoon and wrote the story. Magic Johnson, being HIV positive. A lot of very serious things that, I had to write and be the first at that, weren't too pretty of things. And I knew for a long time that Arthur Ashe was HIV positive. And I went to the editors of the New York Post and asked them if we could not write it, and they did not till he passed away.
Wow. How'd you find out about his status?
I don't remember who told me, and it might have even been him. I don't know, because he was kind of like a mentor to me. And, I'm a cancer survivor. And then one Sunday I was watching him on, it might have been like It Is or Positively Black, one of those shows. And he said these exact words I'll never forget. He said, a kid growing back up in the South, especially what I was doing, playing tennis, every single day was a challenge. So all I've looked at cancer is another challenge that I could get over. And so I said, well, if he could do this, I could do this too. And it was very inspirational to me. And I did an event with him, and I said that. And then after that, he kind of, grabbed me under his wing.
Wow.
Yeah.
How'd the Magic Johnson status come out?
I think someone called me and said he was having a press conference, but I think I kind of knew beforehand. An anonymous person kept calling me, but I didn't do anything with it till he had the press conference.
Oh, so they were really bringing you the info.
Oh yeah, even if you remember Spencer Christian. In fact, he was home doing the weather like over the summer. He'd been doing it in San Francisco. When he got divorced, and this is way back in the 90s, he called me up and said, I'm telling you now I'm getting divorced, and you could go ahead and write it, because at the same time Joan London was getting divorced. And he said, I don't want everybody to think that everybody at Good Morning America is getting a divorce, but I'm just going to tell you this now. Yeah, so people basically did always call me, and then other things I kind of uncovered.
With situations now, do you feel that the celebrities are letting the paparazzi and the gossip columnists know? Because the cameras just happen to be in the right spot.
Oh yeah, Angelina Jolie is the queen of it all. She doesn't have a publicist. She lets them know everywhere her and her crew are. She's the queen of that. But now celebrities are controlling a lot of their own breaking stories with social media. Yeah. Because everybody's so addicted to social media. It's just, I even am. It's like crazy. So they're really controlling a lot of their own breaking stories with social media.
How has social media changed the gossip world?
Well, for me, the internet is really what changed it. Because you could be out there by yourself with a story for almost 2 days, certainly an entire day. Now you can't be out there with the story for more than 45 minutes, if that. Instantly you'll get picked up by everybody. And so these kids now, they're not making money like I made in the 90s. I'm not making money like I made in the 90s. I'm just saying the internet, to me, is what changed everything more so than social media. I look at social media as I like it because I'm connected to all my friends I grew up with, and I can see what they're doing every day. It's very exciting. you know, and the people that you went to kindergarten with and stuff, you could see them every day and see their grandkids and their kids. And that's why I like social media so much.
So you were the publicist for Muhammad Ali.
Yes, I did through Murad Muhammad, did the Muhammad Ali coin and the Muhammad Ali cologne.
What year was this?
I would say I went to the Post in 84, so I'd say about 80, 81.
As a publicist, how did you handle such a dynamic character?
Well, you know, he was a character. I say champ, he said, "You calling me tramp?" I said, champ, tramp. He was a very nice guy and, you know, very down to earth and easygoing. I mean, he was incredible. And it was hard to fathom such an iconic figure, you know, that could go anywhere in the world, you know, and to be such a very nice guy. He truly was.
Did you have to help prep him for interviews, or was he ready to go? Or
He didn't really do a lot of interviews back then. We just kind of, you know, did the press for this stuff, and he'd be at the press conference for each of those entities and not really say a whole lot. He had already kind of shut down with, you know, a lot of the talking that we saw early in life with him, or, you know, you probably saw in old videos and interviews. He had quieted down somewhat. I remember one time we went to his house with Larry Holmes, you know, because I also worked for him. And we were out in LA, and this guy Booker, they took us by his house. And he was just so natural and everything, even at his house.
Hmm. So he acted like the champ that the world.
Yeah, he was doing magic tricks.
Really?
Yeah, he was doing the magic tricks with the handkerchief and all that at his house. Mm-hmm.
So before interviews, this might be a dumb question, but did he ever get nervous?
Who, Muhammad Ali?
Yeah.
He didn't seem to be. I mean, I'm telling you, I don't remember him doing a lot of interviews. It was just we had to move him from point A to point B. Like one time I gave this still talking about this pizza party. That's all I had a budget for was pizza. It's when Larry Holmes fought Scott Frank in Atlantic City. The way the casino said I could have the free pizza party was I had to deliver Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, even though Larry Holmes was the one fighting. And for so long, we couldn't find Ali. And then he finally showed up. I was like, because I don't want them to shut the party down. And they're already talking about me and I'm serving pizza because it was half the fight. They already dogging me out. So, but yeah, it was more moving him from point A to point B rather than him, you know, talking and giving interviews at that point.
At this time in the early 80s, was his religion still playing a factor?
Oh, yeah, that was another problem. He was always praying. I'd be going to look for him, and he was praying. It's like going to the mart on 116th Street. I'm trying to buy a purse, and these people are praying. I'm serious. This tailor, I had this tailor make Mike some pants. I called him. He said, "You got to come after 3 because I got to pray." And I think it's wonderful. But I'm just saying, that's how the champ was, Ali. He was his religion was very, very much a part of his life. I witnessed it firsthand, prayer and all.
How was the cologne? What did the Muhammad Ali cologne smell like?
Well, the bottle was hot. It had him on and the ad in a pink jacket and suit. It smelled pretty good. And someone recently asked me, they said, "Do you still have any?" I said, "Yeah, that was like in 1981. No, I don't have any." So, but yeah, it was nice. And the gold coin was a commemorative coin.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. The champ had a commemorative coin.
Yes.
Was he still fighting? Well, he was still fighting at that time. Did you help do any publicity for his fights?
When I worked for him, I was pretty sure he was retired. When did he retire?
I want to say 83, 84.
So this had to be right then in 83 because I don't believe he was in any shape to fight.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did you work with Muhammad Ali?
My whole little boxing career was from 80 to 84. So it would be within that time period, you know, for probably about a couple of years or so because we really milked the Muhammad Ali cologne. And the cologne, I tell you though, was 1989. That came much later.
The cologne?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you work with him?
Yeah, because I had an ad for it on my magazine.
Is it defunct now, or is it?
Yeah, I haven't seen it since then.
Nobody
No,
Muhammad Ali.
no Muhammad Ali cologne anymore.
Did it have the slogan on it, "Float like a butterfly"?
No, it was just a really pretty bottle, and it was very nice. And the coin was gorgeous. It was, like I said, a commemorative coin. It was very nice.
You also were the publicist for Larry Holmes.
Yes. And he wants me to work for him now. I worked for him for quite some time. I actually met him through Sal Mamby. Sal Mamby was my first client, and that's how I met Larry. But I did, and with Larry it was very interesting because it was a time that he left Don King, and he was doing his own promotions, first with Murad Muhammad, then with this guy out of Connecticut, Bob Andreoli, and then with this guy down in Dallas, Mike Idri, I believe was his name, but that fight never took off. He was supposed to fight Jerry Coetzee. And so with that, I learned a lot. Because I had to help with the entire promotion, even typing up contracts. When we were in Scranton, he bought this guy, Julien something or other, he was French. And I got the Ring Girls. I found a modeling school in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I got the Ring Girls. So I had to do an awful lot of work with those fights that Larry promoted himself.
Wow, so you were really involved. How did you like the boxing world?
I really did love it because I love sports. And I kind of just happened into boxing. I met this contender, Harold Weston, and that's how I met Mamby and Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. They both were my first clients together. They split the $300 a month they paid me and would look for the other one for the $150. Then Mamby said, I'm tired of paying this money, and bought me a car. He felt the car, then he didn't have to pay anything. So we went up to Dick Gidron, and he got me a Mark IV Lincoln Continental. Oh, the things I've endured. But Mamby is my best friend. I love him. But yeah, they would look for the other one for the other $150. And then shortly after that, I started working for Larry because when Mamby lost to Leroy Haley, we were in Ohio and we went to eat. And Mamby said, 3 hours ago I was the best in the world at what I did. And it was so upsetting to me. I just couldn't let it go. I was in the restaurant crying. And so then these guys came that work with Larry, and they said, oh, Larry wanted to make sure you were all right, and got up to your room. I said, okay. And then he called me the next day and asked if I could come to Easton for a meeting. And then he said, I've just never seen that kind of loyalty that you displayed for Mamby. And so he said, can you travel? And I said that I could, and then I could write the press releases and everything. So that's how I started to work for him.
Now they're different, but so you have Muhammad Ali and Larry Holmes. How do you approach those two as a publicist, dealing with them? Because the personality is like
well, like I say, with Ali, it was mainly moving him from point B to point A. It wasn't a lot of conversation or anything. With Larry, he's very hands-on, bossing you around. So it went on from sunup to sundown. In Vegas, a few times, they even woke me up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I had to do stuff. And he, aside from the fact that, he was an incredibly, gifted athlete, he was, even with all that, bravado and you better do this and you better do that stuff, he was kind of a funny person. Because once... this one young lady, her name was Joyce, he gave her the concession to do the programs when we were in Vegas when he fought Marvis Frazier. And I had never liked this guy, same guy, Booker, out of LA. He said, you need to go work in that press room because this is a big opportunity for you. There's people in and out of there from all over the world. So tell Larry to put you in the press room, once everybody gets here. Because I went to training camp and helped with all that too. But, with him, he was just always different. You got to do this, you got to do that. It was all very interesting. But I learned a lot working with Larry Holmes. I don't think I'd ever flown first class until I worked for Larry Holmes. I traveled everywhere. I learned boxing. I learned people. I have to truly say I did learn an awful lot working for Larry Holmes. And lately, you know, we've been traveling with him again because he and Michael Spinks and Jerry Cooney and Ray Mercer, they do a lot together. So lately, you know, I've kind of felt like I'm working for him again. But it was all interesting. But yes, they're very different. Like with Muhammad, it was like moving him from point A to point B. With Larry, he was in your face all the time. He was never not in your face. And what I was going to say about that press room, Joyce had the books, and then Larry got the book. He said all the help is in the book because my picture was in the book. We put all our own pictures in the book. He was like, huh? It was funny. Hey, we still sold those books.
That's what it's about, get that money.
Yeah.
Were you with Larry at the time he made the comments about Rocky Marciano?
No, at that point I had stopped working in boxing. When I went to the New York Post in 1984, I stopped doing the publicity.
Okay, because I figured that would be a PR nightmare.
Well, he was a PR nightmare. But he, like I said, Larry is Larry. You know, he's very hands-on with everything he does, with his businesses, everything. You have to kind of admire that about him. He was very hands-on.
What was the boxing scene like at that time? That was like the end of a golden era.
Yes, it was very exciting. And one thing working for Larry, like I said, I learned so much. I got to meet David Hasselhoff and Bruce Willis, and all these people came to his fights. One time Jane Kennedy called up because that's when she was doing the sports. Larry said, "You talk to her. I don't know what to say to some woman like that." And so I really got to know, to meet a lot of people, and it was a wonderful era. It truly was.
You talked to her.
Hey, you talked to her.
Oh, man. I recently did an interview with Michael Spinks, and he said Butch Lewis could sell water to a whale.
Oh yeah, he could. Ice to an Eskimo.
Was Butch really that much of a...
oh yeah, because that's how Leon fought Muhammad Ali. He's just a Marine. He's nothing. You could take him. That was, who Butch was. He was very good. He came from the background of his father had a used car lot. So he came from that whole background of car salesman type thing. So yeah, he was really good. It's just like when Michael fought Larry. Larry didn't even probably barely train for Michael. He's like, this is going to be a pushover because Butch sold things that well.
What made him so persuasive?
I think because he was this short guy and he just had this huge presence and he just had a mouth on him. It was always yak, 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 yak. And he was pretty smart with the way he negotiated things. He was very smart with it. And he had a Michael Spinks who just kept winning, because he was his main fighter,
Would you say he's one of the greatest boxing promoters to ever live?
Well, it's interesting because you still, now, of course, you've got Golden Boy, and you were saying earlier that Floyd Mayweather is big, but you still think in terms of Don King production, Top Rank, and Butch Lewis Productions. Then you kind of think of the Dubas and Lou DiBella and stuff. But still, those names are the ones that still ring out.
What do you think made him so great?
He had Michael Spinks, and he kept winning. He couldn't go wrong. He kept winning. Knocked 21 people out. And when you got a fighter of that magnitude, and you're also, smart enough to surround yourself, with other people and make decent deals.
So how does Butch Lewis match up to Don King?
Well, he didn't have the amount of fighters, but I think he matched up pretty well because at one time, Top Rank and Don King, they had all the fighters. Nobody else had any fighters. And then the Dubas got the fighters after the '88 Olympics, because they signed up just about the whole Olympic team.
Who did Butch have on his roster? He had Michael Spinks.
Bernard Hopkins came way later. And Mike was talking about some guy who had Elijah something. I really didn't. Then he had a guy named Glenn. But he always won fights. He matched him very well up with fights. And before James Shuler died, he had James Shuler. So it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Wasn't bad at all.
James Schuler for Thomas Hearn.
Yeah, James Schuler was pretty good. He always used to crack me up. One time I heard him trying to hit on this girl. He said, "I'm the North American Boxing Federation champion." I said, "Oh, you got to spell it all the way out, Gold, okay?" I just happened to be walking past minding my own business. It cracked me up. He was a nice guy.
Have you ever worked with Al Heyman?
No, I haven't, but we did a promotion just recently over at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and it was with Al Heyman Productions. But we didn't ever meet Al Heyman,
No one has ever met him. That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, some people don't feel he exists. I'm serious.
Bob Arum actually said he doesn't exist, but...
I don't know. A lot of people don't think he does, but somebody has to have met him along the way.
He's very smart. He's like Charlie's Angels boss.
Yeah.
The power is from being not seen.
But he may, he could be right. They could be just using that name.
Huh.
You never know.
So you did a lot of coverage on the Oj Simpson trial.
Yes.
What was that time like? Because that was the most sensationalized trial in history.
Well, I was blackballed. I don't have a talk show today because I took up for Oj Simpson and Michael Jackson. But if I had to do it again, I would do it again because I still do not believe that he murdered Nicole and Ron. And I'd known him for a long time. My friend Reggie McKenzie blocked for him when he played for the Buffalo Bills. And I had a few other times when there'd been problems in his life and they'd come across my desk, I had called him and said, "This just came across my desk." And so I just didn't believe that he was capable of murder. I know the domestic violence with Nicole, and I've listened to him explain all that to me. He explained that infamous 911 call, that she made, and he was out there doing all that hollering, explained exactly why he was out there doing the hollering, and so I still don't believe that he murdered those two people. And I was the most sought after guest because I was the only one defending him. So that's why I was so visible during that time.
So when you say blackball, were you approached by specific people that said, "Hey, you're taking a side"?
No, because there's no other reason for me not to have a talk show other than that. And I know when they originally were doing The View, some of the producers at The View were producers over at Geraldo, and they wanted me very badly. And Barbara Walters was adamant against it because of the OJ and Michael Jackson, because of both of them. So I think that just kind of happened in general. With me, it's as far as having a talk show. They probably thought they could bury me, but sometimes when you got talent, you still kind of sneak on through there. It's hard to stop you from doing anything.
What is it about the trial that made you think OJ's innocent?
Well, the timelines were off to me, and Nicole's townhouse was a townhouse. So I always felt if two people are getting slaughtered, first of all, one person cannot stab two people to death, especially somebody with bad knees like OJ. So one person cannot do that. So I always thought the reason the neighbors could not come up with anything, somebody saw something. All that noise cannot be going on, and a townhouse is connected where nobody saw anything. And that's what I will always believe somebody did see something. But because it wasn't OJ, they didn't tell it.
Have you been in contact with OJ since?
I haven't been in contact with him since he got out of jail, and I've tried. I left messages at the attorney's office because I don't have a phone number for him. And I've been in Vegas several times, and he hadn't called me, so I guess we'll get back together one day. I'm like, one day I'll run into him somewhere.
Were you in touch with him while he was in prison?
No, I wasn't, and I feel bad about it. I did not write. No, I didn't. But, prior to him going to prison and everything, once he got out of jail from Nicole, I was with him a whole lot. He's one person that was very, very grateful for what I did. He and Johnny Cochran. They were very grateful.
Did you meet Johnny Cochran?
Yes, I did. I met him a lot, and he was very nice to me, invited me always to his Christmas party and everything. He was very grateful for the support that I gave them. His wife invited me to his memorial service and everything.
How was he as a person? I've always been fascinated by him. He's such a
He
great
was
mind.
a wonderful man, and that great mind. You know, that's one reason, you know, I think with the brain cancer, the brain aneurysm, because he just thought so hard. Great, an incredible mind. And, but he was a kind person, you know, just so very nice. I mean, he sought me out after, you know, he saw me on television. And as I said, when he died, his wife invited me to the memorial service.
Wow. At that time, did you visit OJ when he was in jail for the alleged murder?
No, but the minute he got out, the first thing he did is he and Jason and Arnell called me to thank me. And then I went to LA for something or other, and he had me over to his house for lunch. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was always very grateful. Yeah, we went on a trip to Bahamas, and whenever he'd be in New York, I would see him, or when I went to Miami, because when he moved there, you know, he took me to Prime 112 to eat. He was very grateful and very kind.
Oh, wow, what was the Miami years like for him?
When he got back there, it was all fine till it ended in Vegas. When it ended in Vegas with the going after that memorabilia.
That was insane.
But that was a horrible setup. I just was saying, thank God I wasn't there, because I guess I probably would have gone with him too. So that was insane. That was a real big setup, though, because people know his temperament, and they know that was his stuff. I don't know how to this day, how they got a hold of it. But I noticed going to his house, the first time I went to his house, there was like a Warhol. There were he had a lot of Donna Summer's art. That's the first time I knew that Donna Summer painted. He had about 4 of her paintings on his wall, and he told me, yes, she paints all the time. You know, I think she might have given them to him back in the day. And the next time I went, there wasn't all that stuff there.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I didn't know Donna Summer.
Yeah, and if you saw her Broadway show, she painted when she was in between. She made some kind of comment that God made Adam and Eve, not Steve, and something or other. And for a while she was blackballed, and during that period she did all this painting. Those paintings are very valuable now, but I would say he had between 2 and 4. It was multiple of them, at least maybe 3. Mm-hmm. And that's the first time I realized that she was an artist.
When you say he was set up, how exactly?
That thing in Vegas, he was totally set up, because those guys, I don't think any of those, did one of them go to jail for a little bit, or they didn't really go to jail?
One of them gave him up.
But afterwards, the guy admitted, when OJ just came out of jail, that guy admitted that OJ didn't know anything of, you know, that they had those guns on them.
Right.
You know, well, so why are you admitting it now? So that was a total setup. Just like someone bought his house to tear it down thinking they could still find a murder weapon. You know, there was just a lot going on.
Well, you hear that they actually saw some knife or something there after they tore his house down,
yeah,
and thought it was the murder.
Yeah, well,
like, what the?
Don't you think the LAPD combed this sucker really well here?
What do you think is the fascination with people wanting to lock up OJ?
Now, I'm going to say this, and I hope I don't get in trouble again. Because, you know, I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I grew up all my life, you know, around Jewish people, went to all the bar mitzvahs, all this stuff. Gave friends a star for holidays. Now, you know, many, many Jewish friends. In my opinion, if Nicole would have just gotten murdered, nobody would have cared. I'm being very honest. Mm-hmm. But Ron Goldman was murdered, and I think that because of his religion, it turned all these powers to be so much against OJ. I don't think they would have been so upset had it just been Nicole. They might have just at that time and day, you know, because I did a Geraldo with the Ku Klux Klansman. sitting up there.
Or Ronald get beat up?
No, he didn't get beat up there, but the Ku Klux Klan was starting to beat me up, and he was in full regalia. And he called Nicole all kind of white, this and that, and Mongol children and this and that. And it just made me think a lot of people probably thought the same way, even if they weren't in the Ku Klux Klan. And my cousins, they called me afterwards. They said, you know, you have really lost your mind. We're here in Michigan. You can't sit on TV fighting with the Ku Klux Klan. Are you going totally crazy? But, you know, I've never been scared. You know, I don't know why. I didn't even think of it. I just told that man, you better shut up. And he called me the N-word. I said, if you call me that N-word one more time. He said, yeah, bitch, that's how violent they are. See, they're violent. My cousin said, boy, you've really lost it now. There's no hope for you. Yeah, that's true. So, I don't know. But for him to go from being so beloved to so hate, but murder is a horrible, serious thing. I mean, 2 people's lives are gone. Yes. And that's a very serious, terrible thing. So on one hand, you can understand if people truly felt that he did that, the outrage. But as I said, I just did not believe that the person I knew was capable of that. Yeah, so.
But when you say you see the outrage over 2 murders, and then you see a case like the Robert Blake case, with the gun and the this and that, there is no outrage about that.
Because they could, like I'm saying on the go, they didn't consider his wife was all that. I'm just being honest. He was beloved. He was on the Little Rascals. He was Beretta. I'm just telling the truth.
But there was no outrage.
But every day there's murders and there's no outrage. There should be outrage we should have outrage every time these black gang members kill each other. It should be horrible outrage. And, you know, people are like, So, I mean, I'm serious. And so I just know that I didn't think he was capable of that. The person that I had met and talked to and everything, because one time my friend Copper and I, this is, you know, prior to the murders, we were at Mickey Mantle's, and I went there to see him because it was something with OJ, and he sat and he talked to us. When she left, she said, I didn't think he liked black women. I said, well, just because he married to a white woman, he got a black mother, black sister, you know, he's always been nice to me. So, yeah. She was in shock. I don't know what she thought he was going to do to us, poison our hamburger or something.
His wife was black.
Yeah, Marguerite. I was talking about her earlier today.
How's she doing?
I don't know, but she's been married several times, you know, since OJ. So.
You also did a lot of reporting on the Michael Jackson case. What was that time like?
Well, it was the same time. Michael Jackson was the same time as Oj Simpson. So it was rough. It was not easy. I guess people thought, there's anybody on TV but Flo Anthony? One time I saw, oh gosh, what's the, George Lopez. I was just looking at TV one morning and he said, oh, you should be like Flo Anthony. She's on everything. Pop up like Flo Anthony. I said, oh my God, now I'm the brunt of jokes. I've known the Jacksons a long time. I met LaToya, Michael, Janet, and Randy in 1977 at Disney World.
Wow.
And they were in line just like us. And I was just getting out of college, and I was working with these young kids at a group home. And so I came up with this bright idea to take them to Disney World. So we got the local car dealership to give us a van, and we actually camped at the Yogi Berra camping grounds. So we were at Disneyland, and this one kid said, Flo, that's Michael Jackson. Now, you know, they already crazy kids. So I'm like, I'm trying to get the money. I said, that's not any Michael Jackson. She goes, Flo. It's Michael Jackson. I turned around and said, oh my God, it is Michael Jackson. So I said, everybody be calm and let me see if we could get a picture or something. And they were very nice. And I was friends ever since.
What was Michael like back in those days? We're talking about 42 years ago.
He was always very nice and this horrible jokester, prank caller. LaToya too, they are prank callers from... It's unbelievable. In fact, Steve Manning, he's done publicity through them for the years, one of my best friends. he was the president of the Michael Jackson fan club. He got the job because Suzanne DePass and his cousins were best friends, and they needed somebody to open the fan mail. So he would go back and forth from New York to Havenhurst. And LaToya told me all the pranks that Michael played on him. She said, we don't know why he kept coming back. And they would play pranks on Michael because Michael had this real thing for Fred Astaire. And one time LaToya said they called from another number and made up. They said, this is Fred Astaire's assistant and he's coming over for dinner. Michael said, oh yeah, he is. And had the cook prepare all this stuff and he was just, and no Fred Astaire came. That's just the kind of jokes he played, toy plays, you know. That's just the kind of guy he was. Always just a very fun, nice guy.
What kind of pranks did Michael do? Did he ever prank call you?
No, LaToya did all the time, but no, and probably still might. You never know with her. She's funny, but he never too much prank called me. Anytime he called me, they told me in advance he was calling. So I was sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. So they would call he's gonna call, he's gonna call. Everybody said, calm down.
So they would call 5-10 minutes
and say he's gonna call. Then another time I almost kind of ran, we almost ran him down. I wasn't driving. When he and Janet did the Scream video, I guess they call ahead to say who's gonna come through the gate. And so they said I was coming through the gate and he came out there. And I was so shocked to see him standing out there with me. I said, oh my God, there's Michael in the mask. And so my friend Janice was driving. He said, whoa. He said, oh, you almost hit me. But it was just so shocking to see him standing out there in a black terry cloth bathrobe and a black mask.
A black what, ski mask?
No, that little mask, that little surgical mask he used to wear.
Oh.
Yeah, he really has it, always had it on.
What was that for?
Keep the germs away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I see people walking around New York.
Yeah, well now you need them, but you know they're all like LaToya taught me a lot about germs. Don't like if you're at the bar, cover your drink. If you're going somewhere, somebody talking over somebody breathe. I never thought about that before, and so to this day I do that. So you know.
So what was your involvement with the trial? Were you in the courtroom actually, or reporting on it, or were you with the family as a confidant? What?
I was just a friend. People think I worked for the Jacksons, but I never really had a job. I was really just his friend, and I had seen him and been with him around children. So I knew that he wasn't hurting any child. I knew that. I've been witness it firsthand. And, you know, he was an extremely nice guy and not quiet like people. In fact, he didn't really even talk in that high voice. You talk to him normally, his voice is about 3 octaves lower.
Really?
And so, just a nice guy, very nice. And the one year, because I had done so much for him, he got me tickets for the Grammys, and that was interesting because the tickets were really Julio Iglesias tickets, because that was their very best friend. And who else he was very close to, his best friends, was the Bee Gees. In fact, Maurice Gibbs, Michael was the godfather to his children. He was very close with the Bee Gees. And so he would just go to Florida and stay at their house.
Wow. How did his demeanor change at the time of the trial? Or did it change?
It didn't change. That's when I would get the phone calls that he's going to call.
Okay.
And it really didn't. And I was telling him about all the emails I would get from fans and everything. He says, well, I want to see those emails. And it really didn't change. He stayed very calm and nice, you know, until the end.
There was a time he was talking about Tommy Mottola at a meeting.
He was up in Harlem.
Yes.
With Reverend Sharpton. And he said he's very, very devilish.
Yes.
And then that's when Tommy Mottola tried to get him kicked out of Sony. But instead, you know, those Japanese people still loved Michael. That's when the Japanese were still running Sony. Instead, Tommy Mottola got kicked out of Sony.
That's how it worked?
Yeah, that's how it worked.
And he said he wanted to say something, but he said he didn't want to say too much.
Yeah, because you just don't know what people are going to do. And Tommy Mottola has always been a very powerful man. You know, just look at the whole Mariah Carey thing. You know, so extremely powerful man. And so that's why he didn't want to say too much. He stuck with the devilish, but that was bad enough. That really infuriated him.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Did he try to seek retribution?
No, he tried to get them to drop Michael. Now, who's going to drop Michael Jackson off a label? Instead, he was let go. Tommy Mottola.
After the trial, he's acquitted. Did you speak to him after that?
Yes, but he left. He went and got his bag. They said it was about 30 pieces of Louis Vuitton luggage. I'm not joking. And he and his kids, they got on the plane and left immediately. Then after that, I went to London with him. I went to London maybe about 95, 96, I don't know. I went to London with him for the concert. And then I did the Scream video. Because that was after the Scream video was before or after the allegations. It's also, and then he allowed me, I took a camera crew. When he and Spike did the They Don't Really Care About Us video, I took the camera crew for Inside Edition. He allowed me to do that. And what he always said to me, get what you can. You negotiate it yourself, and whatever they pay you, you just keep it. And then also a couple of times, because he manipulated the tabloids. I did stuff, he said, just negotiate it. He was saying whatever they give you, you just keep it. Mm-hmm.
When you say he manipulated the tabloids,
he would place stuff in the tabloids. Or get me to do it, yeah.
He would actually give them the info.
Well, I would give him the info and this and that. And the other thing that Michael liked a lot, like he'd be over at the Helmsley and coming in town for stuff, he wants me to go on the radio and say it because he liked all those kids out there screaming and hollering.
He liked the crowd out
there
because he knew it drew publicity.
Yeah, he liked, and he just liked to see them.
What was his brilliance? Because he sounds like a brilliant marketer.
I don't know how he was so darn smart. But my mother, she used to say, your friend Michael Jackson is not a human being. He's a phenomenon. My mother said, I don't understand it. You know, to sing and dance like that and create like that and be that brilliant businessman. I mean, that buying that Beatles catalog, nobody still to this day understands the kind of business move it was. And he totally hustled it out of Yoko Ono without a blink of an eye. Hustled the Elvis catalog out of Lisa Marie, blink of an eye. You know, even with Sly Stone, he gave him $1 million for that catalog, which everybody's still yelling about. But now I guess all of a sudden the estate settled and they gave Sly Stone some more money. And that's Sly Stone some more money.
So he bought the Sly and the Family Stone catalog for $1 million?
$1 million, but I'm not finished. When he bought that Beatles catalog, Little Richard's catalog was somehow in there. Michael just gave that catalog back to Little Richard.
Bravo.
Just gave it back to him.
Good.
Yeah.
So they hustled Little
Yeah, that Beatles catalog, it had a couple. There was a couple catalogs that that were in that Yoko Ono owned.
Is the catalog still with the Michael Jackson?
Yes, it's with the Michael Jackson estate. Yes.
And
Paul McCartney's still trying to buy it back.
He still wants it.
He still wants it back. Yeah.
And to your knowledge, is the estate still run by the Jackson family? Or?
No, Jackie is the only brother that works for the estate, and I think he. I won't say how much he makes because he makes a decent. It's not millions or anything, but it's a nice monthly paycheck. He's the only brother that works for the estate.
As an administrator, or
I don't know what he's doing over there. I guess they had to have some member of the Jackson 5. But I love Jackie Jackson because I follow him on Twitter, and his whole life is the Jackson 5. I mean, his Twitter thing is Jackie J5. Yeah,
oh, really?
Yeah. I just love Jackie Jackson, but yeah, he's the only brother that works for the estate.
Did you do any publishing work publicist work for the Jackson 5 or LaToya?
No, I really am just a friend.
Oh, so this is just all love without flow.
Yeah, it's just, okay. I'm really just a friend, yeah.
What you say, oh, flow.
No, people always thought I worked for them, but, I might do some stuff if Toy asked me to do something or something like that, but they're my friends, yeah.
Why do you think when blacks reach a certain level of prominence, we get attacked in that way? You think of OJ, you think of Mike, Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby, that's just a whole nother story.
Yeah,
I don't know why. You know, they say the real reason Bill Cosby was attacked, he was trying to buy the Cosby catalog.
oh.
And that's what, I mean, I had that on pretty good authority.
So, well, he was the executive producer.
Yeah, but he owned it.
Oh.
And to buy it, yes. I have that on very good authority. And that's where all that Me Too stuff started with him.
Wow. And they said he wanted to buy BET and he wanted to buy NBC at one time. And
Yeah.
he had a special coming out on Netflix, a stand-up special.
Yeah, the NBC thing, that when his son died or was murdered, that was a rumor. But I don't know how true any of that is. I do have on very good authority that he was trying to buy the Cosby catalog.
Wow. And they stopped him from making a business.
Yeah.
Allegedly, let's say.
Yeah.
So the lawsuits don't come.
Yeah, allegedly, yeah.
Do you think Cosby will ever get out of jail?
Yeah, they have to let him out of jail. He shouldn't even be in jail. He could be home with a ankle bracelet. It's ridiculous they have that old man in jail. It makes no sense at all. Over the crime he's in there for, he paid her 30 years ago or 20-some years ago. He paid her off. So none of it makes any sense to me.
Did you hear that a couple people came out and they actually admitted that they lied about some of the allegations?
Yes, I know one of the women that did. And I want to say also with Bill Cosby, he was very hands-on with me. He always called me up to talk to me and give me stories himself. And right before all this happened, I called him because he was going out on comedy tour. You know, I had a certain time I had to call him to talk with him. He was always like that. He wanted to talk to me and tell me himself and everything. So I've always liked that about him. From when I was at the New York Post, you know, always.
What kind of person is Bill Cosby?
Well, I guess everybody now thinks he's the worst person in the world. And I mean, you know, we, as a woman, no one can condone drugging women and, you know, without their knowledge and everything that he is accused of doing. And it's terrible. And there's no excuse for that sort of behavior. But like Whoopi Goldberg said on The View, once in a while you have to admit that I slept with this ugly butt man to get a job. Once in a while you gotta admit it. You know, so, you know, but it's horrible. You know, it's horrible and I do know some of those things are true because I know.
So some of the allegations.
Well, a lot of those things with him, Harvey Weinstein, we've been hearing all those stories for years. Matt Lauer. It's like, why all of this something new? No, this stuff has been circulating since the 80s.
So it's been circulating about bills and appeals.
Yeah.
Since the 80s.
80s, those Quaaludes, of course. Right. I think that with Andrea, the one that he went to jail over, he admitted under oath at the civil trial that he did give them to her without her knowledge.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Wow. But the story's been going around.
Oh, this is old stuff. It's not, none of this is any new news.
Okay.
I mean, you know, I really admire Ronan Farrow, but I mean, kid, this is no new news. You've just been able to, you know, break it and break it down and bring it forth. But all this stuff has been circulating since the 80s.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been knowing about Cosby for 30 years.
Very long time. We would hear the stories. I don't know who was believing what, but yes, you would hear the stories.
What about Robert Kelly? Any stories been going around?
Well, we know this has been going on forever. And I got a phone call and somebody, I still really don't know who it was because it was like semi-anonymous, saying they had that tape and did I know how to get it distributed.
They have the new tape?
No, the old tape. The tape from back in the 90s tape.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because, you know, I grew up in Chicago and they said he did this in Homewood, Flossmoor and everything.
Yeah, no, I got a call asking if I knew how to distribute the tape. I did.
They tried to cut you in on the action.
Somebody said, you the dummy, just hung up the phone. I said, not getting involved with any craziness like that.
Does R. Kelly see the outside of a jail cell again? Or is he down for the count?
I think he's down for the count. I think it's all caught up with him.
Life.
Yeah, I don't know about life, but I think he's down for the count. He's not getting out of there.
Well, you take human trafficking, and they're gonna throw kidnapping on
Yeah.
it, and then statutory
Yeah, he's
rape.
not getting out of there.
And I'm guessing, I'm 41, he's probably about 50 something.
He's exactly about 51 or 2.
He's definitely looking at 30, 40 years.
Yeah, he'll be in there till he's an old man. He's not going to see daylight other than in the yard again. It's done.
Do you think that one was politically motivated, or was
No,
it-
because nothing with him can be politically motivated. You know, he's just a brother from the hood. No political motivation there. I just think you can only get away with heinous actions for so long. Sooner or later, what's done in the dark is going to totally come to the light, and that's just caught up with him. He got away with it for a long time. You know, sooner or later, it had to come to a head. Hi, I'm Flo Anthony. The holidays are here, and what's a better stocking stuffer than my 2 novels, Deadly Stuff Players and its sequel, One Last Deadly Play. They even have Christmas themes because I'm the original Christmas girl. I just love Christmas. And trust me, these books are going to take you on a ride that's being better than being in a Bentley on a warm summer night.